Welcome to episode 3 of the Risky Business Show with Dave Risk. I'm your host, Dave Risk. I'm here with Piki Chappell.
All right.
Bass player extraordinaire, cellist, producer, sound engineer. Tell us where you originally come from and how you got started in music, Piki.
Well, born in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Moved to LA when I was about a year old. Lived in Zsa Zsa Gabor's house.
I love it already.
Partying with Denny. My father was best friends with Dennis Hopper at that time during the shooting of Easy Rider.
Oh my God.
And then my father moved up to San Francisco. We ended up coming with him. My father's a very eccentric, charismatic photographer, American well-known photographer. So he was on a trail blaze, so to speak.
Well,
so the kids were following, and the mom. So grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, and actually when in grade school, I was starting to play piano ever since I could reach it. My father was also a pianist, and he would always encourage me or threaten me to play the piano.
Yeah, so both are good, right? Both methods work.
Somehow. Anyway, my older brother was playing the clarinet in grade school, and I wanted to always do what my older brother did, so I started to learn how to play the clarinet in 6th grade, and that didn't go too well, but in 7th grade, we changed schools. I met a new friend who was a drummer, and he had been playing for 5 years. He's like, "Hey, Peaks, man, if you play the bass, our buddy Nick here, he plays guitar, we can make a band, And it kind of started like that. I was like, yeah, shit, why not? But they had been already playing for 5 years, and I didn't know how to read, really. So I learned how to read over that summer of 8th grade before I got into high school, because the high school jazz bass player asked me if I wanted to join the jazz band. They needed a replacement. And I was like, oh, shit, I better get my shit together. So I was doing a summer job at Olita's Doll Factory, and she happened to be a music teacher, so I exchanged work rebisking her dolls and learned how to read over the summer. And so I got really serious about reading and playing jazz, but I was into rock and roll at the same time. And and my mother would always bang on the door with pots and pans, shut that rock and roll up,
Oh my God.
And she mentioned to me one time, Piki, if you played like classical music, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it?
Right, nice music, soft.
And I was like, yeah, Mom, why not? And since we were living in the wine country at that time, and a lot of her clients were rich winery owners and stuff, and so I got a scholarship to learn the contrabass for classical music.
Fantastic.
And that went on for a while. I joined the Junior Symphony. But I started getting bored of the contrabass. The bass lines were so simple, and you really didn't get any spotlight.
No,
But the cellists in front, the cello section.
You got a little action.
In front, they got some action, and especially my favorite orchestral piece, 80-piece orchestra, is the tune-up. The tune-up was the most awesome. The harmonics flying all over the place, and I heard the cellists, they were doing some crazy stuff, and I was like, okay, I gotta secretly switch. I'm not gonna tell my mom, and so I went and bought a cello, and pun intended, started playing it, but I realized that the cello was, tuned in fifths.
Right.
And coming from bass playing, I already mastered the bass by this time, by 18, So I figured, why don't I just crank the strings around, tune it in fourths for a second, see how that feels. And it was a little interesting at first. Some of the strings were a little too slack, some of them were too tight, but I was amazingly instantly able to play.
Right. Made sense.
And I had the bowing technique from the contrabass stuff, so it kind of blended, and I wanted to electrify it. I wanted to rock it out.
Wow, fantastic.
I was playing in an alternative rock band at the same time, singing, fronting the band, singing, playing bass, called Euphoria. And the guitar player, he worked at a Limbic guitar company.
Yes.
And he was the pickup maker. He wound the pickups.
Wow.
That was his job all day long, to wind the pickups, you know. So I was like, Tony, man, maybe you can make me like, kind of like a P-bass kind of wonky thing with 1,000 winds.
Wow.
It was a wild guess.
Yeah.
And he gave me, he did that for me and gave me the Alembic electronics, you know, and I somehow fastened it on the cello, and it was a wonderful result, because I could get a really strong tone, really clear, strong tone, and I could play over rock bands and DJs and stuff. And
it'll cut through, that's for
it'll
sure,
cut
right?
through, and
Yeah.
it won't go crazy feedback like most acoustic pickups do. So, okay, speeding forward a little bit. So, you know, at 18, I was making my living playing music and teaching at that time, you know, and...
So you started teaching very early, basically, you were teaching bass?
Yeah, I was a crazy kid, you know, from 12 years old when I picked it up till 25, I was practicing like 10, 15 hours a day, and, you know, I got very serious about it. So I became one of the top bass players in the area in Sonoma County. And so I was a gig whore, basically. You know, I played everything, jazz, schmaltz, to new age, crystal music, rock bands, country bands, you name it, all across the board.
I'd like to join a new age crystal music band if I could, myself. I mean, if you could lead me in the right direction.
Well, maybe this guy still exists. His band was called Crystal Wind. Go figure.
Check it out.
Forget his name. But nice guy. Anyway, so... but at the same time, I was really into experimental music. My father was a big influence on me with experimental sound, and this really got me interested in sound design in my later times. But I was experimenting a lot with pickups and acoustics and things like this. And
electroacoustics.
Electroacoustics,
quote unquote,
and acoustics, you know.
And acoustics.
But you know, non-conventional instruments. You know, so I formed this group called Sync Anonymous in the early 90s. And
Sync Anonymous.
Sync Anonymous. We'll spell it out for you on the...
We'll have a...
In Time with the Unknown. That was a suggestion from my father. I liked it. So yeah, and we had two rules in this group. Never rehearse and never play the same song twice.
I love it, and I gotta say that I have done many a gig myself where this was the similar philosophy, where there was no rehearsal. Not never rehearse in the sense that there was a band, because I kept getting different musicians together. So it was just out of necessity that, well, you know, we can't rehearse, there's a gig, and therefore go and improvise the gig.
Well, in this case, the Sync Anonymous group was a core of three guys. Myself, my friend Todd Reitzel, who was a guitarist, and Kerry Garloff, bless his heart, who's passed away, percussionist. And we were concurrently also playing in this Euphoria alternative rock band. So we were doing like kind of progressive pop on one side, and then this total experimental stuff on another side.
And what year was this about?
This is early 90s,
early
92,
90s.
93. And then I moved back to San Francisco. I was probably maybe 25 at this time, and I got deeply into the experimental music scene there, you know. And Tom Nunn was one of my teachers of electroacoustics. He used to build instruments. He would call them crustaceans or barnacles, and out of sheet metal and tongs, and tines hanging up, and amplifying them with crystal piezo pickups and floating them on a balloon and bowing the things.
Right.
Really crazy sound. So I would join him in gigs. I would play the cello with that, and with him doing that. And I used to borrow his instruments sometimes and do these late night underground parties. San Francisco was very famous for this stuff at that time. And, you know, I was getting a lot of attention by people and kind of introduced to a whole Burning Man scene, and that went different directions. But when I was living out in the woods, I learned how to walk a tightrope just out of my whatever.
Just out of boredom.
Yeah, boredom or
learn
whatever.
How to do this.
Learn how to do this.
Good side skill.
You know, crack my nuts a couple of times,
Yeah.
but I was like, hey, you know, I'm amplifying my cello. Why can't I amplify the tight wire? And so I experimented with it a bit. I realized that I was walking on a thick steel cable, and that doesn't amplify that well. It just thuds, you know. I wanted to go for a skinnier wire, so I started reducing the diameter size of the wire, which makes it much trickier to walk on because you're walking on a rubber band. But I managed to find the right gauge, and I built bridge pieces out of plywood, kind of like a violin, you know, a bridge and a nut, you know, so the string will freely vibrate, you know, not hard attached to something. And I use a come-along, you know, a winch, hand winch, to tune it. And,
wow.
Then I put the crystal piezo pickup on one of the bridge pieces, ran that into a mixing board, and then from the mixing board, I took the auxiliary output, put it...
ran through some pedals.
Ran it through an oscilloscope. And then made a black box, oscilloscope, and then a video camera hitting the oscilloscope, and then projected the oscilloscope on the wall behind me.
Oh.
So the wire is like 30 feet. The oscilloscope line is 30 feet, and so whatever I did on
that is great.
I created a bow. I just cut something with a jigsaw out of a piece of plywood, a 4-foot long cello, you know, Archambault thing, and used a bicycle inner tube and stretched it over and put some rosin on there, and here we go. We're walking on the wire and playing the wire as we're walking. It was fantastic
amazing
stuff.
I've never seen anything, or this is the first I've heard of an act like this. I mean, and so. Was this act part of how, I know that you worked with the Cirque?
Yeah, the Cirque du Soleil. Well, that act, no, it didn't really have much to do with that.
No.
It was actually...
You would think that it would, though.
You would think that it would. Well, actually, a lot of that, what I'm telling you there, applied to work I've done with the Cirque.
Right.
But it wasn't directly related.
No, but you have definitely, I mean, you just got some tightrope walking skills.
Yeah, but I was never going to join the circus doing what I was
playing
doing.
the bass or on the tightrope. That wasn't going to happen.
Playing the bass on the tightrope. You never know. But I got really into like performance art, multimedia performance art. You know, I was doing like projection on transparent material and performing behind the transparency with lighting that I would control by my feet, so I can make myself appear in the image and disappear, and with music and stuff. And I did one series of show called The Chairs of Perception, and we'll show you an excerpt at some point. And at the end of the event, like I have this beautiful steel chair, you know, that I've used to like sit down and play the cello or something like that. It was just an object, but. At the very end, I had a fishing line attached to the chair, and I had an assistant just pull it up slowly so the chair just kind of raises off the ground. And I took the seat cover off, so it was just a skeleton. And I started playing it with the bow. It was all amplified, you know. So that was like the finale of the show, The Chairs of Perception.
So you're playing the actual chair, the steel
playing
chair.
The actual chair, yeah. Really fun stuff.
So now, this is in San Francisco. We're talking the early 90s.
Early 90s, early to mid-90s, yeah.
To mid-90s.
So a friend of mine, Fernando Velasquez, he was a good mate of mine, filmmaker and producer in San Francisco. And he met this guy, Carlito Del Seggio, in Montreal in 98, I think. And he came back and told me, dude, you got to come to Montreal, you got to meet Carlito. This guy's, you know, wacky artists like you and blah, blah, blah. And So he brought Carlito out to San Francisco, actually, and we met. And then we went to Burning Man together. And then the next year, he said, I'm doing this thing Just for Laughs festival. I had no idea what Montreal was about or anything at this point.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, so he sent me a novel of lyrics, practically. And he says, I want you to write the theme song for the Circo de Bacuza. This is the event we're doing, And I'm like, yeah, San Francisco style. Yeah, I'll do whatever. Throw it at me.
Sure.
And so I sat down with the cello. I was like, man, these lyrics are written like really bizarre. Circo de Bacuza. How do you sing that anyway? And I was fighting with this for a while. I didn't think I could come up with anything. And then, so I was initially just like screaming, Circo de Bacuza. And then something hit me while I was recording. I was like, Circo, Circo de Bacuza, traveling on the Silk Roads to Circo, Circo de Bacuza. Different octaves, sorry, I should have. But
That was nice, man, really nice.
With the cello, really gorgeous stuff. And then that kind of popped, and, that was every night they would carry me out on a surfboard with a dental chair on top, me playing the cello and singing this thing. And people were kind of wowed out, and I was pretty wowed out by the whole Montreal scene. So I kind of liked it, and then so I got invited to come up the following year for another Just for Laugh thing, and the Initiatic Car Wash, it was called. And I wrote a theme song for that. And there's a band of gypsies who were invited to that same show. They were called Maharaja at that time, and so I did further work with this group. Amazing musicians, and did some remixes for them and all. And so I started doing like remixes for people like Paul Pichet and stuff. And I did a remix for his L'Escalier song.
Yeah.
And people were, I think the first time I played on the radio, the radio DJ was like, what was this guy thinking? This guy from San Francisco, how could he bastardize?
How dare he?
How dare he, But
the sacred Paul Pichet.
I think I did a really good job. And Paul Pichet, the first time he listened to it, he was kind of shocked. And he said, after a few listens, actually, it grew on me, We'll have to show you an excerpt of that song at some point.
Any content that you have that is available, we'll post links to at the end of the description.
That sounds good. So just to wind up how I arrived here.
Yes.
So came up in 2000, and then I wanted to be closer to Montreal. And I was getting tired of San Francisco. The .com boom.
The dot bomb bombed.
It hit hard, and all artists were running for their lives from San Francisco, And I was going to L.A. and to New York, and like where should I be? Where do I want to be?
Well, right.
Because L.A. the people are a little squirrely there, and
Squirrely, I like that. Yeah.
So in New York, they're in your face, but at least they're telling the truth most of the times. So I decided to move to New York so I could be closer to Montreal because I was doing more stuff, And I came up, I think it was 2001, 2002. Started doing some special events for Cirque du Soleil. And that's kind of how I got introduced into that. And one day I just met Guy by accident in the back, the green room thing, and we both laughed at each other's names because Guy is kind of an unusual name for an American. Guy,
right?
But Guy, like the butter or something.
Guy,
purified butter.
G-E-E,
clarified butter. So. He laughed at my name, and it's like, hey, I'm doing a DJ set at a loft party after, if people want to come. I just threw it out there, and he's like, yeah, give me your phone number. And so we started a friendship like that, and like through that stuff, I started doing more work in the special events department, and I moved up to Montreal because of that. You know, it's like, hey, you know, there's a kind of a career thing going on here, I guess.
Job, yeah. That's really good job, great position.
Can be. I mean, the paycheck was good, and I was able to work my own hours, and, you know, I was working for the special events, so I wasn't touring with the circus or anything.
Okay.
Making instruments and things like that, and doing special performances. So they would, you know, throw something at me. It's like, oh, we're doing opening of a certain show, and we want to do an ice cave theme. Can you like come up with an instrument that something ice, you know?
An ice instrument.
An ice instrument. And I was like, yeah. You know, I'm a yes man when it comes to like wild ideas. So went home and thought about it a bit. I was like, yeah, IR controllers, MIDI, stalagmites, ice stalagmites. So, you know, not real ice, but I made these. I actually had the props department at the Cirque make me these stalagmite things. And I inserted these infrared controllers. So I had like 4 stalagmites, and I was able to play each stalagmite, open up envelope filters, change pitch, almost like a theremin-ish, but a weird theremin.
Wow.
But not only that, but I came across this weird power bar one time in my experimental life.
We got a little sound exploration going on right now. Oh.
Yep, somebody's drilling a hole.
Let's see if they keep going or not. But
all right,
keep going.
So where was I? So I came across this power strip bar, and it had MIDI in and out on it. Go figure. I mean, like, how cool is that? That means I can, like, through MIDI, I can power anything electrical, like a drill or a light, or, you know, anything that, and I can give it variables, MIDI language 1 to 100, you know? So I was like, I can control the obelisks in the center of the room. They had 4 obelisks, real ice obelisks that were lit up. So I was controlling the obelisk with my little instrument up on the mezzanine.
That's crazy.
So my stalagmite would light up as the other one, the obelisk, according to that.
Yeah.
You know, wow, this kind of stuff, you know, icy sounds. I can't remember. That was really fun. And so these are kind of the things I did with Cirque.
That's really amazing. So far, I mean, what I'm hearing is that you definitely have a different musical path than a lot of people. Much more avant-garde, I guess. You know, I guess than the classical, coming from a classical background. But you did master the upright bass, and then moved into more experimental. Very experimental stuff.
But concurrently, at the same time, I've always been composing music. And
you were always kind of doing gigs, as you were saying, here and there, I guess pickup gigs.
Yeah, I kind of stopped doing that when I moved back to San Francisco. I was mostly into the experimental scene.
That's it. That was it with that. Right. So now in Montreal, today, we are actually filming in the studio that you work in as well.
Yeah, maybe we can get a little shot of the studio.
We'll do a panorama in a bit, but we'll give it a little tour.
Okay.
But you do projects for people. You do your own projects. What do you got cooking right now, and in the near future, and where can we find you?
Well, currently things are a bit slow because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, been kind of taking a little bit of break and just doing studio maintenance mostly. One project I work with Gonza. he's a fantastic percussionist, drummer.
Absolutely.
So I've been helping him produce some of his projects. He's creating some videos with that. You know, various clients. Dante Leon did a session for him, an acoustic session that he doesn't normally do. He's more electronic stuff, you know. Everything from Persian choirs. There are, how many? 40-piece choir recorded in this studio. That was a feat.
It's a challenge.
Everybody in headphones.
Well, and then you got little interruptions, but don't worry, we'll be able to edit that little bit out, no problem.
So there's so much more I want to tell you, but there's not enough time. But
well, look, don't worry. All of this we could edit any of this out, so don't worry about it. But if there's anything that you really right now are thinking of that you do want to mention, like, feel free.
Yeah.
And
well, one other instrument that might be remarkable for the Cirque, and this ties into my teacher Tom Nunn, the electroacoustic guy. You know, he taught me so well how to microphone things with solid microphones, you know. So I was asked by the Cirque du Soleil if I could create a wine glass instrument, you know, fill it with water and you play it, you know. Because it was Celebrity Cruise, where they were building, Cirque du Soleil did an edition of a bar at the end of the world on the Celebrity Cruise line. So I was invited to create the instrument and co-compose it with Alain Vinet, who used to be music producer of Cirque du Soleil, a good friend of mine, a DJ. So did that, designed the whole thing, and using this knowledge, you know, of proper placement on a resonating surface and the way that the glasses are attached, I came up with some kind of metal finger thing that would 3 points that would hold the glass down with wing nuts on the bottom. So it was very tight, so the vibration was super even and consistent, you know.
Yeah.
And it worked great. And I went on the ship. I came up with the whole system of tuning it. I trained the performers how to play the thing.
Wow.
We spent 2 weeks on this raggedy hoop of a cruise ship. That was a lot of fun. And then that gig was over, paid and done. And then sometime in about 6 months later, I get a call from the Cirque saying, can you give a consultation on your techniques, blah, 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 because we're doing this Corteo show, new circus, Corteo.
Yeah.
And we need a wine glass instrument. And I'm like, well, you didn't hire me to do that? I did the successful thing last time, right? Well, they're always looking for the cheaper guys, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Oh, well, I got paid to do a consultation, and I came in, I looked at this guy's instrument. You know, it's supposed to be like, you know, as a showpiece, you know, like wine glasses on a table, and the clown comes up and just starts touching the glasses, and they magically come alive. Well, his instrument was on top of the table, and it was consisted of 3 auto harp boxes turned upside down with what's that plastic tie wrap stuff, zip ties holding the glasses down. And I was like, wow. First of all, you're getting all kinds of rattly sound, you know, and I would do something very different. And I gave him some consultation. I would say, you know, get rid of all this clutter, you know, these auto harp boxes, and the glasses are too tight together and everything, you know. I did my consultation, left. 2 months later, I get a call from the head sound designer of Cirque du Soleil who was putting Corteo together. He's like, were you the guy who gave the consultation and you made that other instrument? I'm like, yeah. He says, are you able to come down and take a look at this instrument? Because we're opening in 3 days. I went down there. It was the same goddamn thing. He didn't change anything. He didn't listen to anything I said.
No.
Over the phone, actually, before I went down there, I said, are you experiencing like crazy feedback?
Yes.
Are you having trouble with the consistency of the sound, like a rattling sound? And yep. I had a list of 5 questions. Okay, I know exactly what I need to do. I brought my little pickup kit and everything. Went down there and I said, okay, yeah. I can't fix it 100%, but I got 80% of it done. I stuffed the auto harp boxes with foam so they wouldn't have acoustic resonance, because
kill the feedback.
Their monitors were hitting the stage, you know.
Right, perfect.
Audio monitors.
Genius, yeah.
So feeding right back into that thing, you know, just making it a hell acoustic chamber. It was getting noise from the rotating stage, because the motorized rotating stage, so it was picking up all that shit. And so I was just telling him, yeah, and this and that and this and that. And he's like, well, you sound like you know what you're doing. Can you redesign it? And I'm like, sure. 3 days, huh? 3 days.
Top to bottom.
Yeah, $1,000 a day, I'll do it. And so they set me up at the workshop. I went and saw the dress rehearsal to study what was really happening with that instrument. And I got this flash of an idea. I was like, dude, the table is the instrument. Why is there an instrument on the table? So I went to the head sound designer after the first, and I said, trust me, let me take that table, I'm gonna cut the center out of it. And I hack it up. And you're gonna have an assistant take me around. I'm gonna find a really nice piece of resonating wood to fit perfectly into that hole, and then stain it so it'll look like a totally normal table. And then I want your performer to come and visit me after I find that piece of wood. And he was an Italian guy. We could barely communicate with each other, but I said, place the glasses where you want them. I don't want to control the way you perform. Place them naturally for you. Where is this song that you're playing and how they feel? So he placed them around on the table. I just did little circle lines around the thing. So I had my marks. And then I was like, there is that issue of the stage rumble. And I thought about, the microphone basket concept. Just like we had for the U87.
Just hanging, right.
So I went and bought some surgical tubing and string crisscrossed it back and forth twice, laid that piece of wood right in there, and the wood's not attached to anything, it's just floating on that rubber band. And then I did my microphone placement, headphones, amplifier, put, place the glass, held it firmly, okay, mic, move the mic, And then I machined, again, the clips.
Yeah.
Because no tie wrap is not going to work, because you need those things that are very solid. So I had a machine tool, carving the metal, made every piece, and then, and it worked great. No feedback problems, no rumble.
So if this isn't clear evidence and proof that you are the man for miking and sound, I don't know what is. Because this is the weirdest miking situation that anyone could be put in.
Oh, and the time constraint too.
Yeah. So you really pulled it out of the bag big time on that one. Absolutely fantastic. So to wrap it all up, Peekster, I want to thank you for being on the show. We're going to have a little jam-ola.
Oh, you were asking about my future.
Oh,
do we want to hear anything about that?
We didn't get to the future, so we're gonna cut all this out, do a little edit, zip zap zoot.
Sorry about that. Yeah,
it's all good. It's all good.
You guys wanted to know where am I going next? Yeah.
In 3, 2, 1. Hey, Peekster, what do you got for the future, my man?
I got nothing.
Okay. We'll see you later.
Just kidding. Actually, I have been for many years very interested about sound and visual image and the correspondence between these two things. And so I'm working up a secret idea. I cannot express it yet, but it has to do with the correlation of the shape of sound and visual image. So I'm going to leave it just like that.
I like it. I look forward to seeing it and hearing it. Sounds exciting. And with everything you've laid out, I mean, I know it's going to be something special for sure.
Let's hope so.
Absolutely. Let's jam.
Jam. All right.
That's it. All right.
See you
Thank
later.
Very much. In 3, 2, 1, we're out.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, my man.